What's going on, everyone? Anthony Cofrancesco here from Data Dive, and this is Office Hours. Today, we are continuing with our part three. We're going to be working on conversion optimization today, and this workflow is a little bit of a beast, so we have quite a bit to go through. Had a really good session yesterday for North America, and we're going to jump into it today. So for anyone catching this on YouTube, feel free to use the section markers down at the bottom to skip around and go to the section that you'd like to. If you're not already using a Data Dive account, you can go to datadive.tools/demo and book a call with one of our coaches. They know the software well, they know selling on Amazon very well. And so you can scan this QR code or go to datadive.tools/demo and book a call. There's going to be two ways that you can ask questions at the end. You can raise your hand or you can type questions into the chat. As always, there's three different ways that you can become a Data Dive expert. We have our knowledge base powered by our AI chatbot. We have our YouTube channel, and we do office hours 3 times a week. So if you want to access the knowledge base, you can click on this question mark icon in the bottom right-hand side of the page, and you can go straight to the knowledge base, or you can type in a question into the chat. So like how to start a dive. When you do that, the AI chatbot is going to look through the 100+ articles we have, and it's going to give you the answer or route you to the correct article. All of the office hours sessions are currently live on the Data Dive YouTube channel. You'll find them in the Office Hours V2 playlist. This includes everything from where we cover essentials to doing speed round to our most recent real-world case studies, as well as the other prep that we've done in the optimization workflow. So we're going to keep going on with our view of this optimization equation and really looking at how Amazon's ranking algorithm works. Remember, we have relevancy times performance. Relevancy is your SEO, how your listing is written, what's going on in the back end with your catalog to make sure that you're showing up and your organic ranks are high for the search terms that are relevant for your product. That's one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is performance. So once Amazon knows what keywords you're relevant for, how you're going to improve your organic ranks on those keywords is through performance. And performance is made up of your click-through rate, your conversion rate, and your revenue. So as you're able to increase your performance for any of these metrics, or ideally all 3 of these metrics, your organic rank is going to go up. So this is just a function that basically determines your organic rank. And so last week we covered click-through rate. This week we're covering conversion rate. Next week we're covering revenue. So we have workflows available. datadive.tools/workflow. You can see we have the workflow up for optimize SEO, optimize CTR, and we're still making some finishing touches to this optimize CVR workflow, but you'll be able to follow along today, and that workflow is going to be live by the end of the week. If you're watching on YouTube, it's going to be linked down in this video below. And then, of course, next week we'll get into PPC. Last quick announcement here is next week is our second to last week of this series. We're going to be wrapping up with optimizing for PPC, optimizing your sales velocity and revenue. That's going to happen on the week of October 21st. And then the last week of the month, October 28th, we're going to wrap up. We're going to do a bunch of test review, and we're going to launch the beta version of the certification program. So we're going to spend time going through this. There's another worksheet that I'm going to share with everyone in just a minute. But from a high level, optimizing conversion rate is a much longer process than optimizing click-through rate. And it is a much, much longer process, than optimizing for SEO. This is probably, of all 4 of our optimization workflows, this for sure is the longest. And coming from a background of previously owning a creative agency, working with a lot of agencies over the years, working with a lot of sellers over the years, doing a lot of work on conversion optimization, I can confidently say that before, this is something that is going to take a month, sometimes months and months and months and months to put together this workflow. We're talking about just coming up with the idea that, hey, we need to upgrade our images, to concepting out the images, to working with agencies, to getting those images up on Amazon, and then hopefully having some plan of testing alternate versions of the images. So I can't stress just how long this takes. When we were an agency, just getting our clients' assets ready within 30 days was often a struggle. Sometimes this would get even longer. The goal of these workflows, and this one in specific, is to really reduce the amount of time that you're spending on concepting and creating these assets that are going to help improve your conversion rate. So the example that I'm going through today in the worksheets, I spent about 2.5 hours last night getting through the first three steps of it, and it took me about an hour and a half. And I'd say I'm only about 50% done everything. And so the thought is, if you were sitting down as an internal team, or if you're working at an agency, instead of taking weeks and weeks to concept what needs to go into these images, the plan is if you could just sit down and do this in like a day, or even better, half a day. So if you go through absolutely every single part of this process that I'm about to show, I think the first time you do it, it'll probably take you like somewhere between 4 to 6 hours. But once you've done this 5+ times, I think you're going to be able to knock this out in about 4 hours. So if you compare this to some of the other workflows inside Data Dive that are taking like 15 to 30 minutes, this is much longer than that. But compared to how long people are typically spending to just execute on this, it's much faster. So from a high level, what we're doing first is we're analyzing, and what I want to say about this as well is the whole point of this workflow is I talk to people all the time at events, at conferences, friends in the industry, and they're like, Anthony, I know my images are not strong, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what next steps to take to get those assets ready for Amazon. And so this workflow should be seen as like the bare minimum, the 1.0 version of going through this. Just like we had Bernard Nader come on and give a different PPC workflow from what we typically teach inside Inner Circle, there's going to be alternates to this. So kind of like if you would go to a doctor, you're sick with something, and if you go see 5 different doctors, you might get the same diagnosis, but the treatment from each of the 5 doctors might vary slightly, right? Maybe they're giving you very, very similar treatments, but everyone is going to approach it potentially a little bit differently. And so this is kind of bare minimum. If you go through and actually complete all of these steps, I think your probability of getting images on your listing that are going to improve your conversion rate is much stronger. So if it seems like creativity, if it seems like creating images is outside of your wheelhouse and it doesn't feel like it's your superpower, just commit to going through this whole process, and I think you're going to have dramatically better results. Okay, so let's get into it. The steps from a broad standpoint, and we're going to dig into this a little more, are as follows. So first, you're going to analyze what's currently going on inside of your niche. You're going to look inside Deep Dive, and you're going to look inside the AI product brief. And the big step one is you're going to categorize all of your images by type. Once you've categorized all of your images, you're going to then score the images. We have 2 different tests. We have a 3-point scoring system, and we have a comprehension score. Once you've analyzed, categorized, and scored all of the images, you're going to have a really good idea of what's going on in your niche currently. And hopefully by this point, you're going to have a really good lay of the land. And concepting out your images should be really easy. So we're going to concept the images, and then we're going to come up with a plan to create those images, whether it's with our internal team or we're handing it off to work with an agency. Then once we have created, we've taken those image concepts to life and we have something that we can look at, we're going to do some market research. So we're going to go through a few different options of these today and really just cover what the 2 most common tests that you should be running to get some feedback of your assets before uploading. Once we've created the assets, we've tested them using market research, then we're going to upload the images to Amazon. set up our tracking, set up our rank radar highlights, and over time, we're going to test alternate versions of these images and we're going to optimize for performance. Cool. So before we jump into the workflow, this is some essential framework, things that are going to be helpful for you to understand to be able to execute this workflow. And let me just plug in my laptop real quick because I think it's going to die. We're back in action. Okay, so essential framework, some of this is going to be in the certification exam. High-level concepts, pretty easy to understand. Number one, the human brain is a giant graphics processor. That's literally the whole point of why your brain exists. 90% of all of the information that's transmitted through your brain is visual. So while you're sitting here right now, you feel yourself sitting in the chair. Maybe you feel it's really cold in New York. I can feel that getting into my body. There's sounds. I can hear the leaves rustling in the background, keeping my body supported, keeping my heart beating. All of these other things that are going on are a small fraction of what's happening in my brain. Almost everything that's happening right now in your brain is what's in your visual field, in your brain processing all of that and using it to make decisions on what's going on in the world. And the reality is this is happening faster than we can even possibly imagine. So the human brain is going to process an image 70,000 times faster than text. So even before you realize that you're realizing that your brain is focusing on not just what you're looking at on the screen, but everything in your visual field, it's happening, whether you realize it or not. And this represents a really big opportunity when we're selling on Amazon because for either a few seconds or a few minutes, someone's eyeballs are looking, almost their entire visual field is focused on your listing. And their brain is processing very quickly what to do with that information. And it's only going to lead to one of two pathways. Are they going to buy your product or are they going to bounce, look at another tab and buy another competitor's product that's very, very similar? And so I call this whole process of conversion optimization hacking the brain. It's almost like we have a direct feed straight into someone's decision maker, and we're able to influence the outcome of a situation. And this isn't an exaggeration to make it seem like it's that simple. If someone's looking at your listing, they're either going to buy your product or they're going to buy someone else's product because that is, in fact, what happens. The vast majority of time that someone is shopping on the Amazon platform, they're going to buy a product. The buyer intent is extremely high on Amazon. In fact, more than 70% of the time, they're going to buy a product. The average conversion rate of a Prime shopper is 74%. It's probably even higher now. And you might be sitting there saying, I've looked at my reports. My unit session percentage is not 74%. What's going on? Well, the reality is someone might not be buying your specific product, but if they come to Amazon, they type something into the search bar, they will most likely buy a product. The question is, do you do a good enough job of explaining why your product is important and why your product is the only choice over everything else that's on the market? And so one last thing that we should think about here, and then we'll wrap up with this, is you have to tailor your listing to be effective in a distracted shopping environment. Earlier, I was giving this example that someone is looking at our listing and we have this direct gateway into their decision maker, their brain. And it sounds really good. It sounds like a really easy situation to win. But we have to take in one more consideration here. And that's we have this expectation when someone's shopping online that they're 100% zoned into our listing, that they're sitting there, they've got their credit card out, they've got a big smile on their face, they're like ready to buy the product, and they're going to read every detail on your listing. They're going to look at every image in your gallery, watch your videos, look at all of the reviews. And we have this expectation, but the reality is a little bit different. When someone's shopping on Amazon, they're normally engaging in distracted shopping. So they've got the kid running around in the background, the dog's barking. It's been a crazy year with everything going on in the world. And so really what they want to do, they're zoned in on your listing. They have the intent to buy a product, but they're distracted. They want to get in, they want to get out, and they want to get back on with their life. And they want to just check off this box in their head. They know that they have a need to buy a product. They just want to solve that need and then get on to the next thing. Sometimes it's buying another product, but often it's other things that are going on in their life. So we have to make our listing fit with that distracted environment if we want to be successful. So if you think that every single image in your image gallery is an opportunity to check off this list of boxes in the shopper's head about whether they should buy your product, or if you don't convince them fast enough, they're going to bounce and move to a competitor. So if we have, let's say, the first image in the gallery, if it doesn't resonate with the shopper, if it doesn't click, if it doesn't match, there's a chance that at this point they could bounce. Maybe they give you a second chance on the first image. They scroll a little bit further, and then image 3 doesn't resonate. Image 4 doesn't resonate. Okay, the probability of them sticking around and trying to scroll down to your A+ content or re-look at the image to see if it makes sense is going to be more and more unlikely. So I thought I had another graphic here where I'm showing we've got some green check marks on this, but imagine instead of 3 out of your 6 images not being powerful, not helping to check off those boxes, if it's 6 out of 6 that check off the boxes, how's that going to impact conversion rate? Obviously, conversion rate is probably going to go up. And so another thing to think about is how people are interacting with your listing and how people are interacting with your images. So we don't get this information from Amazon. It's looking at, as you get further down in your image gallery, the percentage of people viewing the images is going to go down. Now, like I said, we don't get this data from Amazon, but we can do some estimations and say, okay, if we have our first image and 90% of people see it, and then we go down to our last image and only 20% of people see it, that it's going to be really important what you have in your first image. And the least important image is probably going to want to be in the last position. And so in this case, if we have 5 different graphics, one that's a before and after, one that's talking about capacity, one that's about materials, one that's talking about how to use, and one that's like a branding or a reputation graphic, it would seem from the surface that each of these have equal weight in the gallery, 1/5, 20% each. But if we look at the breakdown from our view percentage, you can see that the first image is going to be drastically more viewed or much higher view rate than getting down to the image number 5. If you multiply 20% by only 20% of people seeing that graphic, it's going to be viewed only 4% of the time. So what we really need to do, and we're going to go through this workflow today, is we need to think about, okay, what are all of the things that we could potentially say about the product? What's a smaller list of what does the shopper really need to know? What's the most important things? And then what do we actually show in the listing? And how do we prioritize what we think is the most important thing, followed by the second most important thing, third, fourth, and fifth? And then how do I structure what the shopper needs to know? How do I decide what actually goes in the listing and where in the listing to put it? So this is where we're going to get into our workflow here. I'm going to share this sheet with everyone so that you can follow along on your own. And then, let me grab this first. You won't be able to edit this sheet, but what you can do is if you go to the top left-hand side of the screen, you can click here, File, Make a Copy. And then what I recommend doing is putting your product name here, and then you can clear out all the information and go from there. So you're going to notice that the worksheet that I just sent over is going to match pretty much exactly the steps on this are going to match pretty much exactly the steps here and the steps that you'll see in the workflow. And so let's take a minute to go through this. Okay, actually, I need to go back to the deck. So step number 1 is you're going to analyze and you're going to categorize the images. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to go into Deep Dive and analyze the images inside of Deep Dive. So in order to do that, you're going to go to the deep dive tab on the left-hand side of your screen. And then what I recommend doing is clicking on the arrows pointing in at each other. It's going to collapse the galleries. So all of the image galleries are all in one spot. Then what we're going to do is we're going to look at the images that are currently in the gallery and we're going to categorize them. And so this graphic, this is what our secondary image matrix is. This comes from about 2 years ago. I had a VA. I gave him a couple hundred products and I asked him to categorize all of these images by type into a Google Drive folder. And what we found is that the vast majority of images that were in all of those niches fell into one of these 15 categories. So we have product anatomy, which is you're kind of pointing to different areas on the product and explaining what they do. A metrics graphic, which is showing a metric, some kind of quantifiable statistic about the product. A how-to, which is explaining how to use the product. Applications, which is showing the different use cases for the product. So for this example, it's like a power bank, and it's showing that you can use it for hiking, you can use it for trail running, whatever it might be. We have a single feature graphic, which is just one graphic that has one singular point. Typically, this is going to be about a feature or a benefit of the product. We have a multi-feature graphic, which is very similar to this, but it just covers more than two. So 2+, usually it's going to be 3 or 5 different features about the product. Sometimes it's related, sometimes it's not related. We have a testimonial graphic, which is pretty straightforward. User-generated content. We have graphics that are talking about safety. So this can be about materials safety. If it's safe to put something in your body, it could be ingredients. It could be product compatibility so that it's going to be safe for the device. We have sizing, which is pretty straightforward. Inclusions, which talks about all of the different products that can be, all the different items that are included with the product. So these can be bonus items, they can be accessories. We have competitor comparison, we have seasonal, and we have lifestyle. Now, lifestyle and single feature graphics, there tends to be a bit of overlap. Typically, I'm using lifestyle if it's just a lifestyle image with no text. So even this would probably be more of a, unless the text is very vague and very general, I'm usually going to categorize a lifestyle image if it has text as a single feature graphic. And then I'm going to say it's a single feature, and I'm going to say it's a lifestyle. And this is like, it's the point of this graphic is saying it's best choice for outdoor enthusiasts. So this is a pretty decent image, but I'd say this is like a single feature lifestyle. If this was just the person looking out at the mountain scene, I'd call it a lifestyle. The point with all of these, though, is, like I said, the vast majority of products, the vast majority of images we found when we analyzed these niches a couple years ago, it was like 80% of the images fell into one of these categories. This is not a hard and fast rule. If you're spending time doing the categorization and you're like, well, I think it's this category, but it seems like this one, it doesn't really matter. This is just to help you wrap your head around what's already going on in the niche. There's going to be overlapping between this group. There's going to be types of images that doesn't necessarily fall into one of these groups, and you can make your own. This is kind of just the starting point. So once we understand this secondary image matrix, then we're going to categorize our secondary images by type. Okay? And we're also going to categorize our A+ content by type. So I'm going to go over into the sheet and show you an example of doing this. This I used for this kid's binocular. It's a product that we've used many times here in office hours. And so what I've done is I've gone to deep dive. This is going to work a little bit faster if you do this in 2 separate windows. And what I've done is I've just started categorizing the images by type. Now, I spent about 30 minutes yesterday doing this, and then I spent about 1 hour in total. So it was like 30 minutes for this, and then 30 minutes for this. And I made it through almost 15 competitors, and then I made it through, it looks like 4 competitors for the A+ content. It's going to work a little bit faster if you work in separate screens. When you start off, it's going to be really slow, but once you've done like 2 of these competitors, then you're going to start to see the same thing over and over again, and it's going to get a lot faster. Now, I'm not going to spend the time to explain right now how I arrived at all of these, but I did record a video yesterday of going through this. And so you'll at least have a video where I'm categorizing the first 12 and then the first four. And I think that should be everything that you need to move on and go from there. Okay. Like if I want to, let's check one of these. So I'm looking at competitor 3 and I'm going to look at image 3. Let's see what you have here. 1, 2, 3. I'm saying, let's see if my categorization is right. So I'm probably calling this either a single feature. I'm talking about the lenses. That's what I'm guessing. So competitor 3, image 3. And you'll notice that we skip the main image. So we just have image 2, image 3. We're calling this not a single feature, but a multi-feature lens. And yeah, so I'm not just talking about one part about the lens. I'm talking about the lens length. I'm talking about that it's coated with all these different colors. It's keeping colors true. It lets a lot of light in. So multi-feature graphic, there's multiple points that are being covered in the graphic, and I'm talking about lenses. Right, let's go to another one. We'll go to competitor 6, and we'll go here to image number 5. So let's find competitor 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we'll go to image 5. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm guessing I'm saying this is a single feature and high quality, right? So let's see if this is right. Yep, SF high quality. So I could go and do this for any of the images in the gallery. What you're going to notice is that in this niche, we start to see the same thing over and over again. We see people talking about it being compatible with eyeglasses. We see people doing product anatomy. We talk about people using this for bird watching. A lot of people using applications graphics. So saying this is perfect for hiking, for sporting games, for road trips. There's guides that talk about how to use. There's people that are talking about sizing. How big is this thing? How does it fold up? A lot of people talking about the quality of their lenses. You can see lens over and over and over and over again. We got bird watching, people talking about it being for gifting. A lot of people talking about the strap. Okay. I can do the same thing for our A+ content. So here I've got 4 competitors deep, and I've categorized basically the different modules in the A+ content. Now, unfortunately for this, if you want to categorize the A+ content, you have to leave data dive. So you click on the ASIN here inside of deep dive. Data dive does not show you the A+ content yet. So basically I just scroll down, and then I'm looking. This is module 1, this is module 2, module 3, module 4, module 5. And you can see this is competitor 2, and I've got my 5 modules explained here. I'm trying to match the image types that I see above. Sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not going to work. But you can see like what they're doing here for the A+ content. Module 1 is they have the brand and logo. This is a very boring A+ content. Module 2 is they just have the logo and product. Module 3 is they're talking about that this is for kids. They're talking about the eyepieces. This is a lifestyle image. They're talking about that this is going to help your kid observe more, do more exploration, and then very similar for module number 5. So you can see this A+ content not really rocking my socks. Okay. It's pretty much just the product and the logo. This is the observation and exploration. The images could be, I think, a little more related to each of these. And then Spark exploration, we've got another picture of a kid. So nothing too crazy going on there. I think there were some cool concepts here. And you can see here, people are doing like scrollable gallery anatomy, scrollable gallery applications. So let's take a look at the competitor 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I open up this listing, let's take a quick look at the A+ content. So let's compare the A+ content that we just looked at. You can see we've got this brand story, which is probably going to tell me I'm looking at all the different variations, not displayed in the best possible way. Pink, blue, 2-pack, green. I think they could soup up those images a little bit, but you can see here. This is in the brand story. I'm talking about products, colors, logos, right? Going back here to the storefront, this is a pretty lame graphic, not a very cool graphic, rather. They do have a video in the listing, which has been categorized. They talk about how the product is adjustable. And then what I like are these scrollable galleries. So you're going to see I noted this as a scrollable gallery for product anatomy. If I scroll through, it's showing me different areas on the product. Not the most visually impressive, but I like the direction here. Okay, I don't want to make my gallery look like this, but could I do something similar? I think so. And then this is a scrollable gallery for applications. So all of the different ways that you can use it, whether you're hiking with friends, watching birds, watching animals, seeing games. Not the best execution, not the best look for the gallery, but is this something that we could leverage? Is this something that we could use in our own A plus? Yeah, for sure. We could definitely do that. So I'm not going to spend any more time on this for right now. Like I said, this is going to take you probably an hour to go through and categorize all of your images. If you're finding that, man, this is getting really redundant after the third competitor, what I would encourage you to do is to just stick with the process, because if you put in all of the time and effort that you need to here on step one, it's going to make it's going to make the concepting of images much, much easier. So the next step here is going to be we analyze the images inside of Deep Dive. Okay, we categorize the images by type. We fill them out inside of the sheet. The next thing that you're going to do is you're just going to run the AI product brief and you're going to do some quick analysis. So you just go into the AI product brief, you select your top 10 competitors. It's going to tell you what are the most important features of the product, what do people like, what do they dislike, ways to improve the product in your customer avatars. Rocket science, what you're going to find in the AI product brief, there's going to be a very high overlap between what people are saying in reviews, what's in the product detail page, and what you're seeing in the image galleries. If you're ever seeing that what you find in the AI product brief is vastly different from what is currently in the gallery for the competitors, then there's probably a big opportunity for you to go and put what people like about the product, what people dislike, the important features, and to get that in the image gallery. Most of the time, there's going to be a very high match rate between these two. So once we've categorized the images, we have a really good understanding of what's currently happening in the niche, then we can move on to image scoring. And so image scoring, we have two different tests that are objective that anyone can do with yourself or with a small team. They don't cost anything to run. They are a little bit time intensive, but I'm telling you, if you go through and do this whole thing, right, what's going to be 6 hours to do this whole workflow in the grand scheme of how much time you spend working on your Amazon business? I think it's small. Be committed to the process. Just go through the whole thing. So the 3-point scoring system is aimed to look at images and see how easy are they to understand and how visually impressive are they. So you're going to be asking yourselves 3 questions. Number 1, do I understand the purpose of this image? Number 2, are all items in the image related and cohesive? Number 3, is the image visually impressive? Okay. So if we're looking in a gallery, just like you could see for these kids' binoculars, you're going to see the same concepts over and 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 over again. All 3 of these images are what I would call a single feature graphic, and the point of this single feature graphic is head position. It's to show me that with this neck pillow, I can put my head to the side, I can put it to the front, I can put it to the back, and I'm still going to be comfortable. So even though all 3 of these images I would categorize the same, not all of these images are equal in my mind. And so if I use the 3-point scoring system to evaluate these images, I can see how each of these is going to get a slightly different score. So for this first one, I understand the purpose of the image. It's talking about 360 support and it's pointing to some different areas on the product. But are all concepts in this image related and cohesive? Well, no, we're talking about the fabric. We're talking about how thick the foam is. We're talking about all of these different things that are not related to just the neck position. And then is the image visually impressive? I'm going to say no, and we're going to give this one just 1 point. If I move on to the second image here, do I understand the purpose of the image? Yes. Are all items in the image related and cohesive? I'd say yes. Right? We're not talking about anything extra. We show the product, we're showing our head positions. And then is the image visually impressive? Is it visually appealing? I'd say it looks okay, it looks fine, but for this, I'm going to say no. So we're just going to get 2 points. And then here in the third image, this is, I think, hands down the best image. I understand the purpose of the image. All of the items in the image are related and cohesive. I love that we're using 70% of the pixel space to show those different head positions rather than using 50% of the pixel space here just to show the product itself. And then if I'm comparing this to all of the other images in the gallery that follow this same type, which one is the most visually impressive? Like, I think this one is the most visually impressive. And so part of this, as you're going through and scoring, you might be a little bit harsh or too easy on a product. And then you're going to look later and see another version of that graphic and think, I wasn't strict enough. I wasn't harsh enough on the competitors. At Camp Ecom, every year we do this exercise. We print out products for an entire niche, and we have the attendees of Camp Ecom score these. When people are scoring themselves, they're always very aggressive. I find that I tend to give people 2s or 2.5s, where other people would give them like a 1, 1.5. Okay. I think I get to some best practices on scoring. Yeah. So I'll get to that. I'll get to those in the end. So we'll wrap up with that for right now. We've got our scoring system. It's pretty easy to implement. The thought here is as well, if you look at your galleries, if you look at a niche, can you get some rough sense? If you're going to score something over and over and over again, can you get multiple people would give similar scores? And I think the answer to that is yes. The second type of test we do is what I call a comprehension test, or sometimes it's called like a 3-second or a 5-second test. And basically what you do is you try to find someone that has very little knowledge of your product. So this can be like friends, family, or someone on your internal team that is not actively working on that product. So they should know as little about the product as possible. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to show each image to that person for up to 5 seconds. Then once they've looked at it you're going to count it out. Once they've looked at it for 5 seconds and only 5 seconds, you're going to take that image away and you're going to say, okay, what was the point of that image? And if what the person tells you the purpose of that image is different from what the intended purpose, what you think the purpose of that image is, then most likely someone who's shopping in that distracted environment, it's not going to click for them. And they're not going to try to figure out what the purpose of that image is. And so you're going to repeat for all of the images in the gallery, or ideally all of the images in the niche. And you can see there's a few examples here on the screen. Like if my intended use, this is for a cooling towel, if my intended goal of this image is to show that this works because it's made with advanced materials, and then the response is this product is made with high quality fabric, that passes the comprehension test, okay? But if this one, for example, if I show this to someone for 5 seconds and they're saying what my goal is to show this can be used when you're sick, it can be used when you're hiking, but what they get from this is you can use this product outdoors, that's going to fail the comprehension test. Okay. So you're going to just use the workflow. It's going to be step 2, and you're going to score your secondary images. There's scores for your secondary images for a 3-point in comprehension, and there's a score section for your A+ for the 3-point score and for the comprehension. A few best practices for each of these. Number 1, for the 3-point test, don't overthink it. Don't spend too much time thinking about, should I give a point here? Should I not give a point here? I would say err on the side of being hypercritical, and then think about, if you have images in your gallery, how can I have everything be a 3+ points? You can also use half a point if you're on the edge. You're like, I think this person did an okay job with this, but they're not all the way there. Use a half point and make it a little easier so it's not all or nothing. And then for visual appeal, if you can kind of group mentally together all of the sizing graphics you've seen, all of the applications graphics, you can use that as a benchmark to say, does this get a full point for being visually impressive? If you're looking at just one, you can err on the side of caution and give half a point if you think you could do better. For the comprehension score, you want to find testers with limited knowledge of the product. You want to shoot for a smaller sample size, and you want to leverage market research tools. Like I said, there's going to be add-ons to each of these workflows. There's going to be 3 separate add-ons. So there's going to be a CVR and CTR add-on for product opinion, one for PickFu, and one for IntelliV. So there are some steps that you can take that eliminate a few of the steps that I'm showing today, but you just got to pay the money and use one of those market research tools and knock that out for you. So I'm going to go back to this sheet here. You can see in the video that gets uploaded, I recorded this last night, and I actually got my girlfriend to help with the comprehension score. I went and scored, it looks like I scored just the secondary images and A+ content on the 3-point scoring system. Same niche here. And you can see, like, if I'm looking at average, some competitors did well. This is like a 1.9. Other competitors, 1.5. Like this one, it looks not great, 1.3. And I think I think I gave people kind of the benefit of the doubt here. But basically, you're going to go through and score all of these. To do everything that you're seeing here right now took me 30 minutes. So I think realistically, if I was going to do a 3-point test and the competitors, if I would, in the comprehension test rather, sorry, it's a little bit early. If I were to go through and score all of these, I think it would probably take me about 2 hours. Realistically, though, I think if you're at least doing your own product and then like 3 to 5 competitors, not necessarily all 15, I think you're going to already get some ideas on, you might not have to go and score all of them and spend all 2 hours. You can let me know yourself. The point here again, though, is just pattern recognition in your head. The more that you see this stuff over and over and over again, it's going to demystify what's going on in the niche, and it's going to make your process when you get here into concepting and creating a lot, much easier. So spend the time, fill this out. You're looking at 1 to 2 hours. If you use an entire team, it's going to go a little bit faster. For the comprehension score, you're just going to see 0 out of 1 because I only had one person to do the comprehension test with. I just showed my girlfriend like 5 competitor images, image galleries back to back. I counted out 5 seconds, and then I had what I thought the purpose of the image was. I see if she got it right. If things are doing well in your image gallery, you should get 100% on this. There shouldn't be anything like this competitor here, for example. The average isn't going to work. It's going to tell me 1 out of 1. But you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of the 6 images did not pass the comprehension test. So if this is happening, that is really bad. Really bad. This should be an easy pass. If you're doing this with more people, I recommend trying to get like 3 to 5 people. Get your family around, call over some friends, order some pizza, and say like, look, we're gonna do something. It's gonna take like 30 minutes, and it's gonna really help me a lot. And have them go and score some of the images in your gallery. Use your internal team. Have brand managers switch to products that they wouldn't normally touch. And yeah, there's going to be a video that comes out. Product Opinion already has a 3-second test that'll do most of this work for you. Okay, so let's see where we are in the deck. So here we are for concept and create. So we can just go straight over into the sheet. I mentioned this list earlier. So if we've met in person and you're saying, hey, I want you to take a look at my images, I've asked you to do this. And so this is the first time I think really showing the entire thing on the internet. This is a really helpful brainstorming tool. And if you've spent the time going through step 1 and step 2, step 3 should be the easiest part that you've done so far. You spent a lot of time on this. You've dedicated half a day to go through and do all of this. Once you get to this step, you should be smooth sailing. So we have 3 different columns here. We have in column 1, this is the largest column. This is all of the things that you could potentially say about the product. And this is a really big list, a really long list. I'm talking about anything potentially that I could say about the product, anything that I could say about the brand, right? And you're going to see that there's a high overlap between what we already saw in the gallery, what was in the AI product brief, and everything going on in my head from image scoring. So things like how to adjust the zoom of the product, that it's easy to adjust, that it works for different applications from bird watching to road trips, that this is great for STEM learning and it stimulates the mind, that it comes with a cloth, it comes with a strap, that it has a small compact size, that our brand has been selling toys for more than 5 years, that we're a USA company, even though we're made in China, that we have 5 unique color variations, that it's perfect for ages 3+ and it's ideal for whatever age, that it has a wide field of vision in the lenses and you're not going to get the cutoff on the end, right? That it includes a manual for bird watching. Some of this stuff I made up. So we've got this really, really long list of all the things that I could potentially say about the product. And then I move into this list that's a little bit smaller, and it's what items are most important for the shopper to buy. So here I'm trying to drill into what I saw in the AI product brief, my own knowledge of the product, and I'm breaking this down into, okay, well, I know we need to talk about the level of magnification. I know we need to talk about how to adjust these binoculars. I know we need to make a graphic that's specifically talking about this is perfect for kids, and it's at soft plastic, fun colors, small size. I know we need to have an applications graphic showing all the different ways you can use this. I know we need to talk about what's included in the kit. I know we need to talk about sizing. I know we need to talk about the quality of our lenses, durable materials, brand reputation, color, visibility, giftability, blah, blah, blah. So we make this second list that's a little bit smaller here. What is everything that the most important thing that the shopper needs to know? And then you're going to try to deduce this list even smaller and prioritize what fits into the listing. And ideally, you're going to want to rank what you feel is the most important. That's pretty much it. So right now, I just copied this and I pasted it over here because I spent a little bit more time here actually concepting these. So more likely the flow is going to be that you would concept your assets here and then you could like redo this list later. So basically what I've done here is I've mapped out 7 additional main images and then 7 modules for A+ content. And then I was just trying to look at this list from above and say, okay, what can I take from the top section? And I think I should actually like pull this down. Yeah. No, that's actually worse. Okay. Anyway, so I'm looking here and I'm saying, okay, like what should go first into here? What should go in my secondary images? What's a little bit more of a broad concept that I can put into my A+ content? And so you'll see I've got my image placement here or my A+ placement here. And then I've got a concept. So I'm saying image number 1 to start is going to be a single feature. It's going to be talking about magnification. And then I've got a description. This can be really short. You don't need to overthink it. So I'm saying we're going to show that this has 16x zoom. It's a zoomed in shot of a bird, and it's like a kid lifestyle in use. If I look at durability, we have a single feature for durability, and we're having text that says won't break even in the biggest adventure. It's like an image of a kid throwing it on the ground and a little tag that says shockproof. Got a graphic about sizing, and we have text that says perfect for small hands. It's showing the product in these small hands, and then maybe it has like a second image where it's showing these are folded and placed in a pocket, or maybe inside of a really small backpack that would be going on a hike. And we show our sizing dimensions, right? We've not copied, but we've gotten inspiration from some of the other competitor image galleries. So I think here for applications, we're showing a scrollable gallery. We have images of bird watching, hiking, camping, road trips, sporting events, school, right? Whatever it might be. And so I'm just concepting the graphic. This is what the concept is. You can go through and read each of these. Then what I'm doing is I'm saying that these are all version 1, the V1 of what I'm creating. You could go through and you can make a V2 for magnification, V3 for magnification, V4 for magnification. You could go build all of these yourself. But this is just the starting point right now. And then for the team, this is who's actually going to take this from concept into creating the asset. So either it's going to be my internal team, it's going to be myself using Canva, it's going to be an agency that I'm hiring. So in this case, I put our internal team. This is all, I'm going to hand this off to Natasha and actually try to go and create some of these. And then I have my status here, which for right now just says concepted. Once these assets are created, then I'm going to go and create those assets. And on this asset creation, ideally, you would go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper onto this. So when I ask Natasha to make this, I'm going to see if we can make like up to 3 versions of each of these images. I don't know if we'll get a concept for everything that's in this column. For most normal sellers, this would be dramatic overkill. But in a minute, I'm going to show you a real world case study where we helped a brand increase their conversion rate by 5% and increase their click-through rate by almost 1%. And this is on a brand that is doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. They're the category leader. So would it really be crazy for a brand of that size, and you're going to see the increase in revenue? Would it really be crazy for them to go and make potentially 3 alternate image variations for every single one of these concepts here, which is a count of 34? Doesn't seem that crazy. Yeah. So next step here, and we're running, I'm taking way longer to explain this than I did in the office hours for North America, but it's okay because this is just a long workflow. Like I said, this one is a beast. So market research is next. We've concepted our graphics. Now, hopefully we've created them. Once we have something that we can test, then we're going to want to do market research. And so really there's 2 different tests that you can run here. We have our base test, which is where you're testing your assets against themselves. So if I had multiple versions of, let's say, the applications graphic, I would test my current applications graphic against my V1, V2, V3. I'm just testing it against myself to see which one is the best out of everything I've created. To benchmark and make sure that the new image I've created is better than my current. For the competitor test, we're going to test against our best asset, whatever one here in the base, and we're going to test this against our top 3 competitors. So there's a few different options for market research. Like I said, each of these is going to have their own supplemental SOP that is like the PickFu version of CTR and CVR optimization, the IntelliV version of CVR, CTR optimization, the product opinion version, because they all have slightly different tools. Like I said, some of these tools actually eliminate and speed up some of this process. But like I always say in your business, you have 2 inputs, you have time and money. So you can either spend the time 4 to 6 hours and go through this whole workflow yourself, not spend any money, but just your own time or your team's time, or you can spend some money to these tools and it'll help you get a majority of the way there without having to spend as much time. So you can use the code seller systems and get discounts on any of these. Basically how you're going to fill these out in the sheet is, this is pretty simple. You have your concepts here, you have your version, and then you basically have your results from the test. So a win if you win, a lose if you lose. And then you can put in the score here. We have the same thing for the competitive test. And then what the next step is going to be, mainly you're going to say, okay, this, if it passed the test, you're going to say this is going to go in our secondary image 2, secondary image 3. Or it's going to be like, we need to go and redo this image. Here's some notes for a revision. If you have the test completed, you can put in a link to the test. I don't have this for this product yet. And then I also recommend just keeping a rough idea on your costs, just so you can see if I'm spending a few $100s with PickFu, Product Opinion, and IntelliV, does it actually help me in the end? Does my conversion rate go up? Do I make more money? Right? So you fill this out, and then we go on to our second to last step, which is our upload and tracking. So we did our market research. Now we do our upload and rank radar. So you're obviously, once you've tested the images, you have an idea that what you have is better than the new images that you have are better than what's currently in the niche. Then you're going to upload this into Rank Radar. You're going to upload this into Amazon and make a highlight inside of Rank Radar. So same thing we did for CTR. You can leave a highlight above the date. So here it's saying I uploaded V2 of our secondary images and uploaded V1 of our A+ content. We did this on October 10th. Pretty simple to leave that highlight. Next thing, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to, once these are up, you don't want to stop there and say, okay, we're done. We've won. We've got great images. Maybe we saw some increase in our conversion rate. You don't want to stop there. The magic is going to come in testing. It's going to come in making small tweaks, testing different variations, testing the order of your images. So I look at really 3 ways of optimizing an image gallery once you've gone from 0 to 1. And the biggest one is going to come down to order. So if you have something that's in position 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever in your gallery, what's going to happen if we move one of those up to position 1? Same thing with our A plus content modules. Like, what if we have the exact same images, exact same versions, but we just like switch the order of them? Okay. You can run A/B tests inside of Amazon that let you change the order of your image gallery, that let you change the order of your A plus content. Very valuable. The next is information density. So this is, okay, let's say we have the most simple graphic with like 3 words max, a really simple image, versus on the other hand, let's say we have 10 concepts inside of the image. We have 50 words. We have multiple images all going on. That's just changing the dial for what your level of information density is. And then last is just design. Like, how could I take that same concept but present it visually in a slightly different way? So you're going to want to come up with different variations and come up with a roadmap for how you're testing all of these. This is an example from the case study that I'm going to show in just a minute here. What you can see here is that we're wrapping up with creating version 3 through version 6 of the main image. We're testing for the first half of October the version 3 of the main image. While we're doing that, we're creating our V2 through the V4 of our A plus content and our V2 through V3 plus and our seasonal images of our secondary images. Once we finish the main image test, we're going to move on to testing V2 of our A plus content, V2 of our secondary image, V3, V4. We're just going back and forth between our A plus content and our secondary images until we get to the end of February, where we've tested 6 different versions. Some of those are different orders. Some of those are different information density. Some of those are different designs. And then in March, we wrap up with testing our version 4 of our main image. This implementation timeline is going to make a little bit more sense in a minute. We're also always testing new sponsor brand video. Okay. Got to go back into the worksheet for 1 second. So this is the step for upload and tracking. Basically, you're saying, hey, we're here in our current month. This is the placement of the image. We're saying, here's the concept. Here's what the version is. We're saying this is live on the listing. And I'm just reminding myself, have I made a highlight in Rank Radar? Is Manage Your Experiment running? And then I'm just looking at my conversion rate 90 days before, 60 days before, 30 days before the change. And then once the change goes live, I'm checking 1 week after, 2 weeks after, 30 days after, 60, 90. And I would keep on filling this in with more data as time goes on. Unfortunately, right now, there's no way to track conversion rate or click-through rate inside of DataDive. And if you're looking at this process and you're thinking, man, this could all be automated. First and foremost, when we go through the guide with Product Pinion, they have an image analyzer tool that will actually find a lot of these insights for you. So that's pretty cool. You definitely want to check out that guide. But if you're sitting here and you're like, man, I wish Deep Dive showed A+ content. I wish they had an AI image analyzer that would tell you the concepts that are in these images. I wish they had a way to categorize the images here by type, to score the images right here inside of Deep Dive. What I want you to do, and for everyone watching this YouTube video, I want you to do this. I want you to click on this feedback button in the top right-hand side. Don't give them a 1-star rating, but maybe like a 3, and be like, yo, give focus to Deep Dive. I've been asking for this for 2 years. This is not a dig at our dev team. They're amazing and they're always putting out new features. But I think the biggest growth that we see inside DataDive is going to come into the Deep Dive section. And so if we get enough people that are establishing the business need for, I'd love to see Deep Dive be built out. I'd love to see Deep Dive improved. It's going to help Deep Dive get bumped up the priority list. And my thought is that we can get this workflow from taking 4 hours to much, much faster, and eventually have DataDive starting to make, filling out this intent sheet for you, coming up with image concepts, maybe even working with generative image creators to make drafts. And that's the direction I think that we're going. So I know we are a bit over time, and I apologize, but I feel like I've given a pretty good, one more thing to show here. So this is upload and tracking. Last one here is optimized for performance. And basically what we're doing here is this is our secondary images. This is our A+ content. We have our concept here. This is our current version. And then basically I'm putting out a testing roadmap. So I'm saying in our current month plus one. So this is like 1 month from now. We're going to test. You'll notice that we're using our same versions of our graphics, but we've just switched the order. So we've put like product anatomy first. Then in month two, we're changing the order again. And then we're going to use our manager experiments to see what's the winning order. And we're just going to keep that one moving forward. And we're going to make no change. So this is like 3 months of testing, just 3 different orders. We get the winner, and then we just keep it the same for our secondary images. And then for our A+ content, we're keeping our initial version for the first 3 months. And then once we get to month 4, then this is a different order. This is adding in some branded modules. And this is a V2 of our, basically the winner. And so some of this is empty, like you can put in what the version is, and then you can put a link to the file. Sometimes this will be helpful to reference. But that's pretty much it. So you go through, you fill out all of this. It's going to take you, I think, the first time 6 hours to do all of this. But here's what you've been waiting for. The real world case study. And this is just kind of scratching the surface, but this is your motivation to go and work on this, to go and say, you know what, 6 hours of my time. If you look at your screen usage report on your cell phone, or you look at your Netflix history, or you just think about how you spend time in general in your business, if I told you that you could make millions of dollars a year more, if you could solidify your position as #1 seller in the niche, and I said, all it's going to take you is for you to sit down, be disciplined for like 1 full day, get your team into a room, maybe take your team off site, get a creative environment. And I'm telling you, it's worth it to do this workflow. And this comes from a real world case study that we are going to be going through in depth on November 12th, the week of November 12th. And it's with a good friend of mine, Raphael from Share It Studio. Now, I've been working with Raphael for years. His agency is a little bit more expensive, but they do amazing work. I can't speak highly enough for their team. And how this real world case study came to fruition is I was doing office hours and I kept giving a product example over and over and over and over again, same product. And there was actually someone in office hours that was affiliated with the company. And he sent me a message and was like, hey, I know these guys. You keep talking about our product all the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, this seller was the #1 seller in the niche. Their listing was perfect from an SEO standpoint, but their images, they had a very outdated main image and they only had 3 images in their gallery. They were all lifestyle images, no A+ content, no video, no sponsor brand video, nothing like that. And so I said, put me in touch with these people. I will link them up with my agency friend, Raphael at Share It Studio, and let's turn this into like a God mode case study. If you already have a brand that's dominating the niche, but we would go and hit hard on click-through rate, conversion rate, and revenue optimization, what could we turn this brand into? And so they agreed. We talked about this last year, and then it was around July of this year, we finally got everything ready and up. And so these numbers, I don't know if this looks good or bad, depending on how big you are as a seller. But what's important to know is this is the total revenue for the portfolio. And what's important to know is that the months, I should really show the months that came before this, like they were going as low as $250,000. And what was actually happening in this niche is, despite being the #1 seller with tens of thousands of reviews, there were more and more competitors that were entering the niche that had amazing graphics, amazing branding. And what this brand was seeing is that every single month, like clockwork, their market share was going down and down and down and down. Their sales were going down and down and down and down. So it was really a matter of saving this brand before they got pushed out of these #1 spots. And so what happened is, after implementing the images, going from selling around $250,000 in a month, previously they had high points of like 400,000, but they had gotten down to as low as like $250,000, to the following months hitting 600,000, September 663. And the brand owners told us that they actually hit their highest months ever, breaking $700,000 per month. We're on track to break $1 million per month, which is about 50% of the market share. And so this is going from like 25% market share to now 35% market share. And like I said, goal is to hit 50% market share by the end of the year. And this is for a niche that does $2 million every single month, right? And so this is what the numbers look like. This is unit session percentage before, right around at 22, 21.5%. This is after the change, getting up as high as about 25%. And then this is looking at click-through rate. Now, we tested multiple versions of the main image before uploading the secondary images and A+ content. The listing was already doing very well. We wanted to move slowly. We wanted to be cautious. And so you're going to notice that the click-through rate drops from 3.25% down to 2%, but the revenue still goes up. That's because of the drastic increase in conversion rate. But what we're going to be able to do is revert to the main image that we used in June, and we're going to be able to get that click-through rate up to 3.25%. So what we've done is we've done the 0 to 1. We've made this initial version of the main image, secondary images, and A+ content. But like I said, we're not done here. What we believe is that over the next 6 months, we're going to be able to keep continually increasing the click-through rate and conversion rate little by little with all of the other assets that we have, changing different image order, trying some of the different variations of the images. And so our goal is to increase our click-through rate from 2% to our target is 3.5%. If we can get it to 5%, that would be insane. And then our target for conversion rate is to go from where we are currently at 25% to ideally 27.5. If we could get to 29 or 30, that would be even better. And then we've already decreased our ACoS from 40% to 35%. Our goal, or I'm sorry, 45% to 40%. Our goal is to get it down to 35%. If we could get it to 30, that would be even better. And so if you look at the combination of all of these, if we're able to hit those medium range targets in 6 months, then that should put us at about 60% of the market cap, which is about $1.2 million in monthly revenue. And you can see what the impact is on the right-hand side. So this is not a deep dive into that case study. You're going to want to join office hours 100% on the week of November 11th or November 12th, whatever that Tuesday is. We're going to have the Share It Studio team. We're going to have that brand. They're going to be on the call. We're going to go through the entire case study, what we went through, and you're really going to like it. If you need an agency to work with right now, there's been a few people we've highlighted on real world case studies. Share It Studio is a more expensive option, but they're one of the people that you don't have to fill out this whole sheet for them. They're going to do all of this for you. So remember, in your business, you have two inputs. You have time and money. Either you spend the time to go through this whole workflow, which I think is very reasonable, very worth it, or you say, look, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to categorize these images. I'm not going to score them. And you either find someone on your internal team who can do it, and if you don't feel confident that they can go through this whole process, spend the money, hire an agency. I'm so stoked about this case study, but the reality is if we would have executed on this like Q1 of 2024, we would have had 9 months at this increased performance. And, we'd probably already be well above 50%, maybe even getting higher on market share percentage. So this is where we wrap up. We just finished part 3 on CVR. Next week, we're going to be doing optimized revenue. We're going to be covering PPC. And then the week after that, we're going to do our test review and then launch for our beta. There's new videos. Excuse me. Woo! There's new videos on the YouTube channel. Now all users can add their custom keywords to Rank Radar. There's a video on YouTube that explains how to do this. If you're not yet connected your PPC account to DataDive, go ahead and set that up. It only takes a few minutes. There's an updated video that explains how to do that. And then a feature that we released a few months ago is Niche Compare. This allows you to see multiple points of time for your MKL, and it also explains how to set up auto dives. If you're not using DataDive already, go to datadive.tools/demo or scan this QR code. We'll give anyone who asks a 1-month starter trial and a 30-minute onboarding call. Really good for diagnosing how your listing is doing. They can direct you to which workflows you should be completing on your own. And then we have full courses inside of Seller Systems. At the beginning of November, I'm going to do a full visual optimization masterclass. It's going to be probably 6 hours long. and it's going to go into a lot more depth than I have time to go through in office hours. So if you want to see like way more information about visual optimization, as well as product sourcing, product development, PPC, we have an entire course inside of Seller Systems that explains all of this. You can get $500 off if you join. You can scan the QR code, book a call with the team. You also get 33% off of your Data Dive membership.